Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Black Parents Aging. Olivia here. I'm without Nicola. I feel like I've been without Nicola for much of this season, but we're definitely going to get her in here to record some episodes. But today's episode I'm excited about because I think it is very relevant for the season that we are currently in. And I know that it will help some people kind of make it through this season. And so I have a special guest today, Adriana Clay Potts, and she is a therapist and she is going to help us manage the holiday season and not let it manage us. So, with that, let me welcome her to the podcast. Welcome, Adriana.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm happy for you to be here because I know this can be a very hectic time of the season for a lot of us. And so before we jump in, just share what you want us to know about you and what you want the listeners to know about you. And then we will hop right in.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for having me. I'm excited to be here and to talk. My name is Adriana. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Georgia. This is home for me, born and raised here. I've been a therapist for about 5 years, although I've only been licensed for the past year and some change. That was a long process. So glad to finally be here.
Congrats
Thank you.
on
It's
that.
been
Yes.
rough. Thank you. Yeah, I love working with people. I love talking to people, of course. That's kind of I think what gets us into therapy. I've worked with all age ranges. Right now, in the work, I'm a contractor with a private practice. So here I see mostly adolescents, so like 11 and up and adults, but I just launched my own private practice recently,
Yes.
firmly rooted counseling, and for that one, it's adults only. So I'm really excited to see where that goes.
But can you tell us just a little bit about what attracted you to this, to counseling, and kind of what was your path? Because I'm always interested in the path that people take to get where they currently are.
Yes, it's kind of funny. It's kind of ironic because it's very like not therapist personality of me. But when I was a teenager, probably kind of headed towards the end of my high school career, maybe like 16, 17, wrapping up, I was super judgy.
Hmm.
Like, why do people act like this? I don't understand. So it made me really interested in human behavior and really interested in like explaining why people act the way they do. It was not
Yes.
necessarily coming from like the kindest place, but I
Yeah.
was incredibly interested and I took psychology in my senior year and I knew like around that time. I was like, yeah, I think I really want to like I want to do this. I want to see. I want to like help people figure things out and learn things about them. So, and that stuck for me. I know a lot of people kind of, change their minds from
Right.
teenagerhood to adulthood, but for me, it stuck.
Okay, that is interesting. I know a lot of us can be a little judgy at times. So
Yeah.
that is what catapulted you into where you are now. So we are in the holiday season.
Mhm.
And for all of the wonderful things that the holiday season can bring, it can also bring some anxiety, some conflict. And so I just kind of want to set the mindset, how we should think about the holiday season and entering into this space. What is a good way for us to embrace kind of this season of the year where it may not cause us to be so anxious or worried or concerned about kind of what's going to happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that there's really a way that we can avoid feeling those things.
Okay.
I think the answer is more so around like accepting that those things kind of come with the territory, right? Because it's just totally dependent on your relationship with your family and what's going on in your life at the time. For some people, the holidays truly are just magical and wonderful and
The
exciting
Hallmark
and
movie.
filled with spirit. And
Yes.
Other people are like, oh my God, no, my family drives me nuts. Yes, I'm going to be spending time with them, but I'm going to be like booking my flight or whatever right back to turn around and go back wherever home is. For me, I need to get out of here. And for other people, maybe it used to be really pleasant and now they're experiencing grief and loss. Maybe
Yes.
their first year or first couple of years after losing somebody really close to them. And sometimes what used to be really lovely is just really sad. So
Yeah.
I think it's less about, you know, trying to make it be something that it's not, and more just accepting wherever we are in the particular moment and letting that be okay.
So let's stay right here for a second. So if I were one of your clients or patients and I was coming to you with some of this anxiety, what are the ways that you would kind of work through that, or what is some advice you can give to people that are having those feelings bubble up during this time of the season?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I'm always going to like normalize that, right? Just validate that feeling, and make sure that people understand that they're not obligated to feel anything outside of what is coming up for them naturally. So, of course, as a therapist, validation, 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 right? Understanding that the feelings are okay. And then I think it depends from there, like what they want to do with that, right? If we're having anxiety because we're about to go spend time with family and family says and does things that we're like, oh my God, I know they're gonna like really just grind my gears, then I think we can talk about preparedness in the sense of how do we assert ourselves more? How do we like communicate with our family that we're not okay with the things they're saying? For some people, that feels too, no, I'm not ready for that. So then we might
Right.
go on like, how do we switch the topic a little bit? Or how do we like manage our own emotional experience, if we're not ready to be so assertive and say the things we need to say? So it's really like dependent on the person in front of me and what the goals are. But of course, we're going to talk about stress management and general coping skills. We're going to take some deep breaths. We're going to do some mental preparation before we pull up to wherever we're going. We're going to give ourselves that nice pep talk. We're going to have an exit plan if we need an exit plan, just those sort of general things.
Is it a realistic goal when you know that for the holidays you are going to encounter family, maybe more so than you would have any other time of the year, to be able to set boundaries with them? Like, is that a realistic thing in this short period of time to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm going to deal with. This is not, like, is that a thing that we should? And I see you laugh. I feel like I already know the answer.
Yeah. Well, it really is it if you are a person who has struggled with setting boundaries and
Yes.
that's like not a thing that you've ever done, is it realistic that you're going to go in there right now and just set all the boundaries? No. No, because that's really hard.
Yes.
It's really hard to like say no or to tell someone how you feel. And of course, totally dependent on your family dynamics. For some families, you being verbal and communicative is very, people are receptive to that. And maybe your family is super communicative. But if that's the case, you're probably not so worried. If
Hmm.
you're worried, it's probably that either
There's a
your family
reason.
is not receptive or you're just incredibly terrified about confrontation for whatever reason. It makes you uncomfortable. So if you're like operating from the like, I don't say anything, is it realistic that you're going to come in there for the first time and just set those boundaries hard and fast and be really good about, um, sort of standing by them? Probably not. But
Mm.
that doesn't mean that we can't do some soft practices, setting boundaries in ways that we do feel comfortable, even if some conversations may be harder and we need a little bit more practice before we get there. And if you are generally maybe a more assertive person, or this isn't so hard for you, then I would say, yeah, it probably is a little bit more realistic. It's always about the way that we communicate. And so boundaries doesn't have to be like coming in the room and being like, let me tell y'all what's not gonna, we don't have to go in hot.
Right.
It's just knowing for yourself what's okay and what's not okay with you, and then communicating that with others, but being ready to stand by the things that you say, because setting boundaries it's not about making someone else behave differently. It's about telling them what you're okay with and what you're not okay with, and understanding that if they choose to do something that you said you're not okay with, the onus about how you deal with that is on you, not on them. So if I say to someone, I really don't like it when you talk to me this way, they might still talk to me that way
Right.
because that's a choice that they're making. So
Mhm.
at that point, I can't be like, but I set a boundary. Okay, but they didn't respect the boundary. So I then have to decide how I'm going to, navigate my relationship with them. People are usually not ready for that part.
Yes.
Struggle with the follow through. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I totally understand that. And this is really taking me somewhere. And I had made notes that I did not put on my bingo card, but so there are people that choose because of all of the reasons you have just outlined that maybe they're not going to engage, or maybe they're going to really limit their engagement with family. And I know like the general societal consensus may make them feel shame and guilt around how they decide to engage or the rules of engagement with their family members. Can you talk a little bit about like shame and guilt that may come from that?
Yeah. I think this is part of the reason why boundary setting is so hard,
Yes.
because I think, culturally just taught that like family is everything. Um, they've got your back when no one else does. That's blood. Blood is thicker than water, even though that is not in the context of the full quote. We just kind of have this idea that we're supposed to have this sort of inherent deference to our family no matter what. And I disagree with that, because our families are human and we are human and humans have conflict, and being born into a family doesn't mean that like we have to be okay with the behaviors. And families do use shame and guilt as tactics. 1000% intentionally, sometimes not, but sometimes yes, intentionally, to kind of manipulate your behavior to get you to do the things that they want you to do. And it works because we love our families a lot of times, right? We do
Yes.
love them. We do have care for them, even if we're not 100% happy with all their behaviors all the time. So yeah, shame and guilt really keeps people sometimes from speaking up, from saying what they need to say, from feeling like they even have the right to say what they want to say, from feeling like their voice even matters.
Yeah.
So it's really hard working with people who have internalized a lot of that shame and guilt from family members. And I do just want to say, provide a little distinction on the difference between shame and guilt.
Sure.
So guilt is the feeling that we have when we feel like we've done something wrong, right? So whatever our sort of value system, moral or ethical code, when we act against that, we do feel guilt. And guilt can be useful because it helps us not do things that that are outside of our, moral code. And that's an uncomfortable feeling, but it can be healthy because we don't want to keep doing the things that are outside of how we view ourselves. Shame is different, because shame is not necessarily that we think we've done something bad. It's like externally we're being told that we're doing something bad, even though for us it may not seem that bad. It may not seem like that big of a deal. Maybe we just like something that people don't think we should like, or we've done something that other people don't think we should do, but we actually don't find it outside of our moral or ethical code. So a lot of the times what we're talking about is shame when we're talking about how our family makes us feel. It's a lot of that finger shaky sort of, oh my God, how could you, blah, blah, really judgy, really
Yes.
judgy.
Yes. We're back
Yes.
to judgy. Yes.
Yes. And it's hard to come out of that sort of internalized shame um, yeah, that's a struggle for people. That's a really big struggle for people.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's also like people set expectations of you as to what they expect of you that may or may not be in line with what you expect for yourself, especially around the holidays. And it could be as simple as I don't want to cook because I don't like it and I'm not good at it. So we're going to cater this meal. And then,
Mhm.
the aunties, grandparent, whoever, want to tell you about how many meals they cook for how many years and for how many people. It
Mhm.
can be as simple as that, and then escalate into all
Yes.
sorts of things.
Yes.
For sure. But yeah, I really like the distinction that you made there. Um, are there coping mechanisms when we are feeling that, when the aunties have ganged up on us and said, well, I bake 15 pies every year for 10 years and you were, you're not, this isn't even home cooked, like you are getting it catered. When we start feeling like less because of what other people are saying, are there coping mechanisms or things that we can do for ourselves in those times?
Yeah, I think for one, if we know that that's the family that the situation we're walking into, we definitely want to do some prep, right? We want to be mentally prepared, and when I say prepared, I don't mean like, that we have to be okay with the fact that that's going to happen, but maybe we understand that we know who these people are. We
Mm-hmm.
know that they're going to say those things. So working on our own self-talk, working on our own, like, no matter what someone else says to me, this is the truth I know about myself. I alone hold the truth of who I am, right? Where we are sort of uh, talking ourselves off the ledge before we even get there. We're mentally preparing and we're doing our own like affirmations. We're trusting in ourselves. And when the situation actually arises, if we're not in a space that we want to say something or we're not ready to like set a boundary just then we might do something like we might take a deep breath and we might get up and walk away if that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to take like a quick walk outside. Maybe we need to take a breather. Maybe we want to calmly assert ourselves and say, I'm not interested in having this conversation right now. It really depends on how ready you are to go there. My initial thought when I'm hearing this is, okay, well, I didn't sign up for that, or
You
that's
don't gotta eat
amazing
these
that you did
pies.
that. That's none of my business. You cooking for 20 years every day with nobody, prompting you to. I don't know how much you enjoyed that, but
Right.
that has me and you are not the same. So that's me because I am assertive. But you know,
Same.
yeah, I have that in me, so I'm a fire sign. So everybody isn't like that
Yeah.
though, and so that's okay. Again, this is where we might steer the conversation and we might do a little like, oh my goodness, yeah, how was that, and allow them to talk for a little bit and take the heat off of you. And hopefully we also have someone there that we do feel in line with. Do we have a cousin that we like to like, maybe we give them a look and we have our little exit plan so we can go have a breather and we need to vent and then we come back and we're refreshed because we got everything we needed to get out, right?
Yeah.
So really, I think it's as much prepping we can do on the front end so
Yes.
that we're not so rattled on the back end, because when we go into it with no preparation, that's when the emotions can get high. We can get really like triggered. It can kind of
Absolutely.
we might be more likely to have an emotional outburst. But when we're prepared, we already say, I already knew you were going to say this.
Right.
Knew you were going to do this. And so I made the decision today to protect myself and I will not
Yes.
be engaging with you. Thank you so
I
much.
love that. And you do know your family. You are like, this is not your first rodeo with these people. You know who they are, you know what they do.
Yep.
And no, I'm not suggesting we do this, but I even will like walk through the conversations in my head, and then they're gonna
Mhm.
say this, and then I'm gonna say, and then
Mhm.
now don't necessarily do that. That depends on how spicy you
Right.
want it. Depends on
Yeah.
how spicy you want to be. But no, I definitely, because to your point, I think sometimes we're like, but it's Christmas. Like everyone is, it's gonna be fine. And then you walk in and your aunt is like, have you gained 10 pounds? And you're ready to like literally fight immediately. And so it is,
Triggered.
to your point about just preparing yourself before, I feel that because you already know your aunt asks you, or your aunt asks you every year when you're gonna have kids. Like,
Yes, indeed.
like there are certain things you
Yes.
just know is coming.
Yep. Exactly. You know who is going to say what. You already know
Yes,
the marriage, the babies, the weight. Those are like the top three
the top,
categories that everyone's talking
the
about.
top.
Listen, mind your uterus and not mine. Okay. Don't be worried about what I got. Worry about your man, not mine. Okay. I got a mirror. I don't need anyone to reflect. That's
Right.
again, that's me. That's me. But I know that that's not everybody. So sometimes we just have to be like, this pie is so good. I've never had a better slice of pie than this pie I've had today, and it's amazing. And I might have seven more. And what?
And that's my business.
And that would be my business because this is
Exactly.
my
No.
body that I have autonomy over.
That, yes, that for sure, for sure. There's something else I want to talk about, and it was actually prompted because when you do walk into family gatherings, people are at different places because everybody's had that a year, and everyone's year has looked different.
Mhm.
And just yourself being cognizant of like what you say to people and how you engage with people and kind of being respective of what they may have going on. And I will ask you because I will give you an example. So, um, Thanksgiving just passed, and a favorite cousin of mine was at Thanksgiving, and I just noticed that he wasn't his self a little bit. He seemed a little off, and later that evening, I texted him. I said, is everything okay? You just didn't really seem yourself. You seemed a little off. And he just said that he was thinking about all of the people that weren't around the table anymore, like all of the people that had passed over even the past year, but just thinking about it even long term, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years, that you start as you get older, you start to see more and more people missing that used to be there, and that has an effect. Can you talk a little bit about that, about loss, about us just extending grace to people in our family as we engage because people are in different places around the holidays?
Yeah. Well, I think for one, just you talked about even just noticing, right? Just recognizing like you seem like maybe you're not doing so well. And I think not being afraid to check in. I think people get really scared to
Mm-hmm.
ask people how they're doing and just to ask like I guess more difficult questions. People are really worried about, oh my God, I don't know how they're gonna respond or if they're gonna feel like I'm overstepping or
Yes.
and so those fears will sometimes prevent us from asking. But I think the biggest thing about communication that I want people to know is to just do it anyway. And I know that that's so much easier said than done, but what happens when we don't communicate, when we don't ask a question, say what we need to say is that whatever it is has gone unaddressed. And what for you felt like a process of, I thought about it, but I decided against it. Okay, but the person that you were thinking about doesn't know you were thinking about them.
Yeah.
Maybe they really needed you to ask. Maybe they really wanted to have this conversation with you. So I think doing our best, I won't say don't be scared, but the very popular phrase, do it scared, is just
Mhm.
do it anyway, even if you are scared. And maybe just trust that if there is some sort of conflict or something, we have to allow people the opportunity to like get mad at us. We have to allow them the opportunity to have feelings about the things we say and not always be trying to avoid that. And if they are mad, then let's give them the opportunity to communicate why they are. Most of the time, though, if it's somebody that we love, they're probably not going to be mad at us. They're probably going to be really happy that we asked and checked in. Um, and so, yeah, I think the biggest thing is just asking, just checking in. Don't make assumptions about what you think they're going to think and what they're going to say. Allow that dynamic to play out on its own without trying to manipulate or control it so much. And don't be afraid to like get it wrong. Maybe we will say the wrong thing. Maybe we will. We really might. We might forget that someone just lost someone and make a joke or make a something or whatever, and then kind of have that moment of like, oh my gosh. But it's like if you recognize that you've done that and you're sorry, just say sorry, apologize. Check in with people. I don't want everyone to feel like they're walking around on like
Yeah.
eggshells and like they can't
Eggshells.
say anything. Like breathe and trust that if there's some sort of ruptures can be repaired. So I think just go into it not being so like, oh my God, here's the list of rules of things I can and can't say.
Yes.
Breathe, read the room, but also don't restrict yourself in that way. Make space for people, be gracious, be thoughtful to the extent that you can. But if you slip up or mess up, just make the repair.
That
And
is so good. Can we just stay there for like just 1 second? Just
yes.
because I think we do spend so much time in our head trying to make just the right move, say the right thing, so afraid that we're going to say or do the wrong thing. And I don't know what we've made up will happen if the wrong thing gets done or said. but just that it's okay that if you say the wrong
Mhm.
thing, because I have been known to laugh at inappropriate time just because I'm nervous, not even because
Yeah.
I think it's like do all the wrong things. And I think we build it up to such a point that it's like I can't move.
Mhm.
And having the attitude that if I make a mistake or if there is a rupture, it can be repaired. I think that is so freeing.
Yeah, it is. And that's the whole goal of communication is to connect, right? We're communicating to connect because I'm trying to share something with you and you're trying to share something with me and we're trying to share something with each other. So not communicating is not helping us connect.
Right.
So let's do our best to kind of like just put it out there. And I think what people don't recognize is two things. For one, the scenarios we create in our head about what we think are going to happen are usually so much worse.
Oh, for sure.
So much
For
worse than
sure.
anything. We're like, oh my God, I'm going to say this and they're going to yell at me and they're going to cuss me out in front of everybody and they're going to hate me forever and I'm going to lose a family member. Probably not. Like probably not. Maybe I guess if you got someone real intense in your family and you know that,
Right.
but otherwise, probably not.
Yeah.
Might be upset. Their feelings might be hurt. You guys can get past that. Um, and I think sort of the other thing too is yes, like when we have those ruptures or we have those moments where we're having hard conversations, the getting through the hard conversation really strengthens the relationship.
Mhm.
It makes the relationship better. When you guys are able to move past a hump and come on the other side of that strong, then it feels even better. And you're able to go, if we can get through this, then we can get through anything. And then it allows for more freedom in the future because you have a reference point. Oh my God, remember when we had that one difficult conversation and we made it through? Okay, so then we can have another one if we need to, and we'll make it through again because we already have evidence that we can do that.
Yes.
So it's like I want people to just push themselves a little bit over the hump to see that even though it can be really scary and we're like this, most of the time it ends up like, oh,
It
this,
wasn't so bad.
this,
Yes.
I can do
No.
this.
Those mind scenarios are killer. I remember a few years ago a therapist wanting me to have a tough conversation and I was like, no, I don't want to have it. I was just like,
Mm-mm,
and
mm-mm.
she was like, you're not gonna die. Like it's not gonna kill you.
You're not gonna
You're going to make it through this. I promise you, you will. But at
yeah,
the time you feel like, I don't know, I might not. Like
yeah.
I'm just not sure if I will or not. But
That is
yeah,
that's
getting
so funny.
over that hump is, but you do feel so liberated on the other side for
You
sure.
do. It's great.
And you have brought us to the next thing I want to talk about, which are tough conversations. So Black parents aging is really about people like us that have aging parents. And as our aging parents are transitioning into a new part of life, so are we in trying to help them in that transition and trying to be good partners with them and trying to know the information and get the resources that they need for their transition. And that sometimes can be really difficult.
Mhm.
And one of the only times that we are all together are during the holidays. And so a lot of times the difficult conversations happen around the holidays where you need to talk to your parents, but a parent may have dementia and it may be time to take the keys, or you notice that they're not as mobile anymore and we need to downsize or think about nursing home or assisted living, or they may need some help and we may need home help, like all of the things that can surround like that transition. Having those tough conversations, even just like, have you done your estate planning? Who are your doctors? What medications are you on? All of those things sometimes can be tough conversations when people feel like, why are you getting in my business?
Right.
And so, is there some pointers that you can give us about how to have tough conversations, how to even enter in, like what atmosphere do we need to be set? Do we need to burn sage? Like what do we need to be doing to even just prepare when we know, okay, I'm gonna be home for Christmas. I live out of state and I need to talk to mom and dad about one, two, and three. and
Yeah.
I know they're going to be resistant.
Yeah.
How can we prepare ourselves, prepare the people that we need to talk to possibly make it easier than it would be otherwise?
Sure. Yeah. That's a good question. And I think you're kind of trying to find this balance, right? Because something that I share with people a lot is we are not in control or responsible of other people's reactions and feelings. We're only in control of like what we say and our feelings.
That's
So
a hard one
it's incredibly hard
because we
because
feel like we are.
yeah, absolutely. We feel like we feel like we're in control of a lot of things we're not in control of. And we don't necessarily always want to let go of that control.
For sure.
But the fact of the matter is, there's no perfect way to ensure that someone is going to respond positively to what we say. We could use the most delicate words, the nice, we could do all of the things, and someone could still be really upset because that's just the nature of like, you're not them. And they're allowed to have a response. So, kind of going back to what I was saying before, is there has to be a certain level of like allowing people the space for their response.
What
That
does that look like? Can we, because I don't think we're good at that. So
I don't think so either.
no. So what does it look like to allow someone to have whatever response they are going to have? What does that look like?
Oh man. I think it looks like not immediately getting defensive, right? Like if someone is upset by something we say, sitting in that for a minute and not trying to escape it or not trying to like get past it too quickly or not trying to, because we just need to validate that their feelings are what they feel at this moment, right? Sometimes, for instance, in therapy, my job as a therapist is to tell people like hard truths sometimes, things that maybe they don't want to hear, or maybe the other people aren't telling them. And that's why they're coming to me. I would
Mm-hmm.
be doing them a disservice by not being honest with them. So a lot of times what that looks like therapeutically in this space, and I think it could look the same outside of here too. But sometimes it's me going, okay, so I'm going to tell you this. Here's my intention, right? My intention is that I want to give you this feedback because I think it's necessary, or I'm saying this with all the positivity in my heart, fill in the blank. How do you feel about the fact that I just said that? Right. And of course, I don't think it has to feel so maybe that formal, right? I'm saying this again as a therapist.
Sure.
Maybe it doesn't look exactly like that, but if someone's mad or they're frustrated, then I don't go, okay, but it's, yeah, that's okay. I can understand why you would be frustrating. I just said a really difficult thing to like take in. So that's okay that you're upset. And I think it's about like trying to manage ourselves and not trying to manage everybody else. So if our internal response is, oh my God, I've hurt them, I think we have to like breathe, breathe.
Yes.
Yes, they're upset. They're allowed to be. They're allowed to be. Let's give them a moment. Maybe we can ask them what about what we said was particularly upsetting. They might be upset not because it's a lie, just because it's a hard truth.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to give people the space to like have their feelings and stop trying to control their feelings. We're really uncomfortable with other people's sadness and anger. Like we don't know how to hold that. We don't know what to do with that. We're like,
You have
oh,
to stop that immediately.
yeah. We're like, like, oh, oh no. And we just have to like, we have to sit in the discomfort and
Okay,
just be like,
so
yeah, this
number
is
one, guys, when we are having these conversations with our parents, our grandparents, or our family members, and they get upset, and it may not be at you, it might be at the situation. Like I'm angry that I'm at the point where you have to take my keys. Like I'm
Yeah.
angry at that, not necessarily
Yeah.
you. We need to take a breath,
Mhm.
let them have their feelings,
Mhm.
and the other thing I heard you said is maybe ask like, what are you upset about?
Mhm.
Why are you, and be inquisitive to see,
Mhm.
because sometimes we internalize things is that it's
Yes.
not about us. So
Correct.
okay, I'm taking that first thing in. Okay, what else?
Yeah. So
I'm taking it for myself. Okay, what's
sure. Yes. And just the spirit, I think, of curiosity and empathy. If we're able to empathize with people And I know that seems so basic, but like people struggle with empathy sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're not necessarily empathetic, it's just that we're too busy being like, I've internalized this, I've personalized this. And so we need to sometimes step out of the me for a second and just,
Yeah.
okay, how do I think I would feel? If if
Yeah.
someone younger, if you don't have kids, then some young person in my life is coming to me telling me about some big decision, that I need to make, and they're coming to me, maybe I'm embarrassed.
Mm.
Maybe I feel ashamed right now. Maybe I feel out of control in my life because I know that I'm headed this way. Okay. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. That feels really
Yeah.
scary. Maybe I'm terrified. So a lot of times what feels like anger is like all of the fear.
Mhm.
I'm scared or denial or whatever. So it's like put ourselves in their shoes for just a second and think about how that might feel to be them. And they're not trying to be, necessarily hateful or stubborn to you. That's just they're coming to grips with being in a new stage of life that is not necessarily a stage filled with fun. There's
Yeah.
a lot of like hard truths about this stage of life. There's a lot of loss. There's things that I can't do anymore. So it's like we just need to be empathetic to that. And we have to still respect. And I think this is probably really, really hard for people who do have aging parents or grandparents or whoever, where we start to feel like we know what's best for them. They are still an autonomous adult,
Ooh.
period.
That's
They
for us that have takeover spirits.
yeah.
That's like, okay, I read, this is what we need to do.
Mhm.
One, two, and they're like, I'm not doing, what are you
And
saying? I'm not doing any of those.
right,
Yeah,
because excuse me, and so it's like I think we can have that. It's about finding the balance, right? Because maybe we really do know that they need some help, but
sure.
we can't come at them like that. We can say, you know, always coming from a place of care and showing them that it's the care, not the control.
Mm,
I'm really concerned. I have so much love and care for you. I want things to be okay. I want to support you in whatever way I can. Let's talk about what that looks like and making sure they feel involved. This is their life. Nobody wants to feel like someone else is coming in to take over their life. It's their life still, right? So I think continuing to treat them with respect and continuing to treat them like they are grown adults because they are grown adults.
yeah.
They faculties might be changing, things are changing, but nobody wants to feel like they're being infantilized. Like that's not a good feeling when you're grown. It's
Yeah.
just not. Someone called me sweetie the other day, like a colleague, and that's in a school setting where that term is usually used more for the kids. They were like, "Hi, sweetie," and I was like, "Sweetie." Not, it wasn't, I didn't feel like the term itself was like disrespectful, but it felt very like you see me as like young,
One of,
like,
yes, one of the
and I was like,
kids.
I'm a grown up.
That's
I'm
it.
this,
Yes.
so even just that tiny little thing, I was like, oh, no, no, sweetie. I'm an adult
We
professional.
are equals.
Right. We are
Yes.
peers. Don't, I know you're a little older than me, but don't do that.
Yeah.
So thinking about our parents like that too. They raised us. They changed our
And they
dynamic.
will let us know.
Yeah, they will. And rightfully so.
Hmm.
Rightfully so, because they've lived this whole entire life. So we don't want to come in there and try to swoop in and
Upend
group
everything.
them.
Yeah.
We want to be gentle and kind and come from that place of care, come from that place of wanting to support and offering that. And sometimes that might look like being okay with the fact that they are like, no, I don't want your help for a little bit. Maybe they don't immediately want your help. Maybe they need to sit with that for a minute and you just continue to offer the support. Okay, if this feels like too much, I get it. I
I
just,
think that is key. I think that is key because I think sometimes we have unrealistic expectations that
Mhm.
it's like, okay, I'm down there for Christmas. We got to get all of this done, and they're
Yeah.
not ready. So
No,
you may have to make a couple more trips.
you might have to make a couple more trips and phone calls because they're trying to enjoy their hot chocolate and presents like everybody else. And you over here talking about some how to prepare for when they're not here anymore. They're like,
Right.
excuse me,
Yes.
I want to sit around the Christmas tree with the family too and kiki and laugh and have a good time. And you're over here trying to get serious. Like, no,
This.
no. So we have to be respectful and open to their timing. And we can't be
Mhm.
always trying to do things on the timeline that we think is best. So we have to make space for that. Maybe
Yeah.
they're like, but that doesn't really mean forever necessarily. Maybe they need a minute to sit with this. And so it's sort of like having an open door policy. Okay, if right now, just know that the door is always open. And then maybe we check in again later. And we have to, find that balance between being pushy and just being supportive. But I think people just want to be treated with respect and they want to feel like they have a choice. And when you give people choices, make them feel like they have choices, they respond much better to that than you telling them what they are going to do. Because when you tell somebody what they're going to do, they're going to tell you what they're not going to do.
For sure. That is for sure.
Yes. I know I'm that way. If someone tells me what I'm going to do, no, even if
No,
that was what I was going to do. Because why
not
did you just tell
anymore.
me that? Because why? I can do that. No, because now I'm not going to do it. Because what?
No, absolutely. I am right there with you. I also think a part of this, being what we do when we talk to families and aging adults and having aging parents myself, I think there's also a piece about managing yourself, managing your fears, like, oh my God, my parents are getting older. Oh my God. Like, I think some of that is what we are having going on inside that we put then on them and on other people. And so I think some of it is managing our own emotions and fears around this particular topic in this particular area.
Totally. Because obviously they're going through their own experience of what this looks like for them, but we also are like witnessing this happen. And we are also preparing maybe for a world that they're not in, or a world that they're in a different capacity than they've been before. And that is a struggle, rightfully so, right? I think it's totally fair to be having your own fears. But this is where we, again, like to your point, we learn how to manage some of that stuff for our own. Some of that's not for them. Some of
Mm-hmm.
that's for our therapist, some of that's for our friends, some of that's for our family, our community, for us to deal with there, and that's not for them because we don't want to be putting extra things on them. They are already going through their stuff. So we want to figure out ways that, okay, outside of them, where can I have my space to talk about the things that the transition that this is for me. Because that's fair and that's valid, but it's not for them, and we don't want to project that onto them, and we don't want to kind of, because what that's going to do then is potentially add the feeling of burden to them. Oh my gosh, I'm such a burden. Oh my gosh, like now you've got to stop doing all the, and that's, no one needs that in this time. No one needs that. So yes, it is a lot of our own emotion regulation. It is a lot of our own learning to come um to grips with things, come to embrace acceptance, which is again incredibly hard. That's a lifelong practice. I don't think acceptance is just like a thing you just do.
Yeah.
You might accept it one day and then not the other, right? So acceptance is like a continued everyday journey, but that's our stuff, and we need to know when something is ours and when something is not, so
Yeah.
that we can address it accordingly.
No, I love that. Okay. Yeah, of course, I go over, we get into good conversation. If there were like three things you would leave us with, so I have two questions. That three things you would leave us with as to ways to kind of master the holidays, come out on the other end, not come whole and ready for the new year. So that's the first one. And then the second one is, how can people reach you? Tell us about firmly rooted.
Mhm.
Tell us about your practice if people are interested in reaching out to you, talking to you on a personal, professional level. How can they do that? It'll also be in our show notes where people have that information as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess the first part, which are the three things to leave you with, I think the first one is just always, you got to know yourself. So doing some self-reflection and some self-awareness stuff so that you can prepare accordingly. If you're in a place where you have no idea your own responses or why you're, it's hard to do it. It's hard to move from any other place if you don't even know what's going on internally. So of course I'm going to say, really reflect on yourself and your needs and what kind of things are like coming up for you in this time, so that you can do that self preparation we were talking about before. What are the things you need to hear, and the support you need to put in place for yourself so that you can kind of keep that in check. The second thing is, again, just coming back to not being afraid to communicate openly. um we're trying not to let fear stop us from doing things. So again, I'm not going to tell people don't be scared. Communication stuff is scary. It's scary when we have strong, happy relationships and we're scared to lose them. We're scared of anything getting in the way of things being okay. It is scary. That doesn't mean that the communication doesn't need to happen. So I think doing our best to kind of remember it again that if ruptures happen, ruptures can be repaired. Let's take a breath. You will not die. Like your therapist said, I say that to my clients all the time. The ground will not fall apart underneath you and the sky isn't going to crack open. You will get through it. You will
Yeah.
make it through. And then number three, acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. Okay. Like we really need to work on that continuously, examining the things that we have control over and the things that we don't. And just as a heads up, there's way more that we do not have control over than we do. What we have control over is this, what it says and what it does, and literally nothing else. Nothing else. So we have to get acquainted with that feeling of acceptance, get acquainted with feeling a little icky when we're out of control, but understanding that that's okay. Just because we have an unpleasant feeling doesn't mean that it's bad. We have to have some level of like what we call distress tolerance, which means no, I don't love this, but I'm gonna tolerate it because I don't have another choice. Right. So those are the three things I would say.
Okay, those are good.
Thanks.
I hope you wrote those down. Those are good. Put
You
those
know what? I
sticky
didn't.
and take it with you.
I didn't, but I will. I will write those down. And then where people can reach me, y'all, I'm not on social media like that at all, but you can go to my website for sure,
Yes,
firmlyrootedcounselingllc.com. I also do speaking engagements, so not just individual therapy, but if you want me to speak at anything, talk about things, any kind of, event like that, I'm available for booking as well. You can email from the website or you can email me at Adriana, ADRIAUNA at firmlyrootedcounselingllc.com. I'm on LinkedIn personally as Adriana Clay Potts. And hopefully some social media is coming soon. I am just actually not that big of a social media girl. So I'm trying to find the balance between putting my business out there and then also not having to constantly be logged into social media because
it can be a lot.
it can be a lot and I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
So TBD on some firmly rooted counseling social media, but you can also find me on Psychology Today,
Okay.
popular website for people looking for
Yes.
this near them. You can, type my name in, you can type firmly rooted counseling in, and it should pop up on Psychology Today as well.
Okay, well, let me just thank you. You gave us a lot of nuggets that I know will be helpful to us as we try to stay sane while traveling with family, traveling to family, and all of the things in between. Um, as you guys know, we always like to hear feedback. We like to hear what you thought about the episode, what other episodes, what other guests that you would be interested in us having. So as always, you can contact us on social media at SR Law Group, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.